What is up? And welcome to finally getting to the Detroit Lions. Been promising this show to you guys for a couple of weeks, and I'm excited to say we are starting it and doing it right now. This is the DLF team preview series. We're going through all 32 teams, and we are having a lot of fun doing that because we're bringing on some smart football people who love the teams. They pay attention to the teams. They know what they're talking about. I always feel like I learn something when we do this. So today, as I said, we are heading to Detroit to discuss this team that has a very new look than they did last season when we last left them. Very different look. Who's going to lead this team in targets? Who's going to lead this team in rushing attempts? We might know, but do we? We'll talk about that. And Jared Goff, what are we expecting? Might even get a little bit of Matt Stafford talk. It might get a little sad in here for a minute when we do, but we'll be back to discuss this panel of guests and introduce them to you right after this. One of the first shows I was ever on was headed up by the guy here to my left, Nate Cheat, one of my favorite people in the industry here. Love being able to promote and support what he does. I literally helped write things in a magazine, and I don't even like doing that, but I only did it because Nate asked me. He's here with us. Nate Cheat, how are you, sir? He's with IDP, guys. So many things. Nate, tell everybody what you're doing.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on. Excited to talk Lions football, as depressing as it might be. There's a lot of room to grow. But for what I'm doing, I would definitely say, check out the idpguys.org. That's my site. We got a ton of great writers. Draft Magazine that Calvin here was a part of. And then don't miss out. If you're going to the FF Expo in a couple weeks, stop by the booth. We're giving away a Darius Leonard jersey at the booth signed. So definitely check it out.
Love that. Appreciate you being on the show, Nate. Right below him, we have Nate Williams. So we've got I appreciate you adding your last name in there so we can distinguish a little bit between our Nates. But Nate he's a coworker at DLF. So pumped. He's been there for just a little bit now. Excited that he's there, but he's on a lot of different things. Dynasty Sons, I know, True North, Ball Blast, a lot of different things. Nate, what you got going on?
You pretty much covered it, man. I got a little bit of stuff going on everywhere. We have a podcast, the DFS podcast launching in September that I'm pretty excited about, me and my boy Dan Brown. And maybe even a couple other things that I can't really talk about yet, but hopefully soon. Stoked to be here, Cal. Always love talking football with you guys.
Yeah, and seriously, like Nate is a really good writer. Make sure you're checking out the writings that he does there at DLF and everywhere because he really does a good job breaking players down. I can talk, and you're going to see that obviously here tonight as well. Right below me, a man with almost no need for an introduction, Detroit Beastie, Chris Robin. You guys know him, you love him. He's a DFS expert. He's got a lot of things that he's doing. Truly one of my favorite people in the industry because he's just such a good dude, loves people. Chris, how are you today?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me. And I've always enjoyed, not Nate, I'm not at all taking Nate Williams, excuse me. I'm not taking a shot at you, Nate, but I've always loved when people say, man, I got something big coming up. I'm going to let you know next week. Then next week, I got it's coming up. I'll let you know. And you never really get what it is. I mean, I would just rather just say it right here and now and let people know. I mean, I get the whole dangling the carrot thing. Yeah. But you know what? That aside, I've loved the transition fully into DFS. Fantasy football, seasonal, dynasty, redraft, it's all fantastic. But to just focus on one thing feels so freeing. And I love being 100% DFS nowadays, boys.
And you guys are all very multi-talented, but we are here to focus on the Detroit Lions, as Chris said there. Speaking of focus, there's a lot of storylines and a lot of things to pay attention to, and trying to figure out how much coach speak there is from a brand new head coach here and Dan Campbell. And you've got a lot trying to sort through the media and the different reports and the wide receivers and all that. Chris, I'm going to go right back to you and just say, what's the most important storyline or camp battle that you're paying attention to?
Well, I have two of them. I'll touch on each one of them really quick. The first one would be the coaching staff, the interaction with Dan Campbell and the offensive coordinator with the talent and with the team. You know how they're interacting, because we know there's certain people not with this organization anymore. Nate has his jersey, and the Stafford wanted nothing to do with Matt Patricia. Darius Slay couldn't get out of town fast enough because these guys hated the way Patricia treated them. They even said they treated the laundry people bad. I mean, and that just starts from the top. How are you going to treat people? How are you going to talk to them? And every time I look at the TV or watch a presser, Campbell's on the field doing push-ups, doing down-ups, getting in defensive linemen faces. And we know these guys love it. And just before the broadcast, I saw a clip of, I believe it was one of the backup quarterbacks. His wife was running in the Olympics, and they had the whole room, that all the Lions were in the room cheering. And it's just a good atmosphere. We always say, you know, atmosphere and positive attitude is underrated, and some organizations have more of that, or some organizations that it's just they don't even notice that it's there or not there. The Lions need a positive influence any way possible, and I feel like this coaching staff has it in spades here. And one other paddle I'm looking for, it's got to be the offensive line, and the addition of Penny Sewell with the defensive line. And the Lions defensive line is not by any means world beaters. I'm not saying that they're Washington football team level, but you know, it's a young offensive line working together. Sewell is making a move, I believe, to left tackle. So it's all about footwork. And I want to see what like Romeo Aquara can do, you know, what he can do and get in, and what, you know, all the movement. And I'm telling you, tomorrow is the day we're going to start to see all the stuff develop. So to me, it's the coaching staff first and foremost, and then we can get into some fun positional type battles, boys.
Your Pats come on tomorrow. Things get real. Nate Williams, how about you? What are you paying attention to most?
I think Chris made some excellent points there, as always. But one of the things I'm really keeping my eye on personally is the rapport that Goff and TJ Hawkinson are hopefully building together. It seems like it's going good so far, but it is early in camp, as we all know. But, you know, I'm expecting big things from Hawkinson this year. And, you know, I've been really going heavy at it online, and I've wrote quite a few articles on it. So I'm just hoping to see that they get off, you know, to a good start early. Goff is pretty reliant on his tight ends, despite not really having a fantasy relevant tight end in LA while he was there. But when the tight ends run routes, Goff leans on them, and Hawkinson's in a prime spot this year for various reasons to, you know, have a stellar year. So I'm watching that pretty close early, and so far so good.
Nate Cheat, how about you?
Oh yeah. So I gotta say, these guys, they're hitting on all of the topics that I'm watching, but I do have to say that the wide receiver battles, and I'm not talking about Tyrell Williams, Brashad Perriman. These are guys that are in for a year, maybe two. You know, they're not going to be the future stars. When this team actually reaches a level of talent that you know, they'll be successful with. You know, I'm talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown, Quintus Cephas, and you know, just like Detroit Beastie there, saw the social media post about the Olympics. I saw the social media post with Quintus Cephas grabbing in Odell Beckham Jr. style one-handed catch. And now, you know, this is training camp. This is the easiest part of the year for these guys, but it is something I'm watching out for, because these are guys that, especially in Dynasty, you've gotten kind of cheap. You could probably trade for pretty cheap right now. And if they can develop, and by next year, when this team is starting to take off, have some good reps, some good spots on the field, like getting those targets, then, you know, they could increase their value to the point that they become starters on your team.
Yeah, no, I love that. And you guys touched on a couple things. I want to go back to this. Is exactly the comment that just came in, was exactly what I wanted to talk about. And Chris, I'm going to go back to you, because you mentioned the coaching staff, and that's one of the things. You know, Dan Campbell came from the Saints, and when he talked about DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, he talked about Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. That's who he referenced. So he knows them well from his time here. Is that like, do you think that's idealistic for him, or do you think that's what we as fantasy owners should expect out of them too? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Whoopsie, sorry. Shout out to Abe. He's a Detroit guy. He works down there. He's a homicide cop, for God's sakes. He sees
wow.
he's in the trenches. Yeah. So be safe out there, Abe. Whatever shift you're working. Thank you for the question. And how much work does Jamal Williams take away from DeAndre Swift? You know what? If you look back a month or two, people were, freaking out. Oh my God. Anthony Lynn is saying DeAndre Swift, we're going to ride the hot hand. Jamal Williams could be our RB1 at times. And look how much things change in just a month or two. DeAndre Swift is their guy, but in today's day and age of the NFL, can you really call? There's only what, guys? Maybe 2-3 workhorse backs. Derrick Henry being one of them. So that is a thing of the past, especially with today's crop of running backs. And DeAndre Swift in his second year, I don't think Swift will ever be able to carry 300, carries a season. It just doesn't happen anymore. But realistically, the numbers, I have DeAndre Swift. Let's just call it what it is. I have DeAndre Swift at about 190 carries. I have Jamal Williams at about 130 carries. So you're looking at a difference of 60 carries. In terms of receptions, I have Jamal around 30, 35. I have Swift around 70, 75. So you can see on paper, you're looking at 30, 40 more carries, 30, 40 more receptions. And in today's day and age, as I've said, of people that want it all right now, what have you done for me lately? There's not, to me, that's clear as day. That's a defined RB1 and his backup. But to most people like us who live and breathe this stuff, and we dig into every single step these players take, that might look like a different, it might look like something different to you. But to me, it's DeAndre Swift, and then it's Jamal Williams. And Jamal Williams is going to take a fair amount of work away, but it's normal for an RB2 in the system. And who's to say they can't work together in conjunction on any given play, any given moment? Jamal can catch the passes, DeAndre Swift can run through the tackles, or you reverse it. Jamal runs through the tackles, DeAndre Swift goes out wide on some wheel routes. So I'm not worried about it. In terms of fantasy football and DFS, you very much have to pay attention to this. But as a real life struggling Detroit Lions fans, I hope they go balls to the wall, both of them, for personal reasons, right? We want the Lions to do well.
100%. And I think Nate Williams, I just looked up while Chris was talking, the last year that Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram were together, 194 rush attempts for Alvin Kamara versus 138 for Mark Ingram, but 105 targets for Alvin Kamara, 27 for Mark Ingram. That's the only difference that I can see is maybe Jamal Williams is a little bit better in the passing game than Mark Ingram. What do you think?
Yeah, like Chris said, the days of a workhorse running back are all but gone in the league, besides a few exceptions. And in terms of fantasy, Aaron Jones finished as a top 5 running back last year in Green Bay with Jamal Williams there. I think that the Lions will probably be playing from behind quite often this season. And I know from what I've heard from Dan Campbell in press releases that he wants to utilize Swift in the Alvin Kamara role. So I think we will see Swift, play maybe lining up in the slot some short dump offs. He's gonna get a lot of work. So in terms of fantasy and especially in PPR, I am all about Swift this year.
Nate G, what do you think about the running backs and how they're going to divide up?
All I got to say is that I hope that we don't hear another year of the count of how many yards the running backs are getting. Are we going to break 100-yard running back? All of that kind of stuff. Like, can we finally get a run game that works? And, and then what does that look like? Is it going to be a split between these two guys? To be honest, I think Swift is going to be the RB1 for fantasy purposes. There's a lot more people are higher on him than I am. For fantasy, just because I don't know. I don't think that the offense for the Lions is going to be that good. So I would want to go at a different route when I go through my drafts. But, I'm excited for football wise to see what these two can do and put together on the field. And I would love to see a dynamic running game that we could build on to build the future of this team.
DeAndre Swift right now in DLF's ADP that was compiled here for July is going as the RB12. And that might feel a little low if he's Alvin Kamara. Jamal Williams being the RB46 feels real low if he's going to be, in that Mark Ingram role. But I'll use that to pivot to this next question. Maybe it's him, maybe it's somebody else. Nate Williams, I'll go to you first on this one. If somebody on this team is going to end up being a sleeper this season, who do you think it's going to be?
It's Quintez Cephas for me. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I love him to death, but you can get Cephas basically for free in drafts. So, everybody's thinking, Amon-Ra, but meanwhile, as Nate brought up earlier, that catch that was made, and, it's only one catch, take it for what it's worth, but it was an amazing catch. And I think that at the price tag, I love Cephas right now.
Chris, what do you think?
Oh, this answer is going to drive you guys nuts, and I might get kicked off the show for saying this, but who's to say Darren Fells can't be a sleeper at tight end? Hockenson is going to get a ton of work, and if anybody who knows me or my DFS content, even my seasonal stuff, I'm always fading tight end. I'm always punting tight end. And Darren Fells has been a nice, steadily kind of punt play for me in all formats over the years. And he comes into Detroit. How do we know how they're going to line up in the red zone or a goal line look? We know Darren Fells is going to score 4 or 5 touchdowns. I mean, that's a little ambitious here, and we never know when they're going to come. But in terms of a sleeper, I apologize, guys, but I'm always predisposed to thinking in a DFS format. In terms of real life, we know the offense in terms of a tight end is going to go to TJ Hockenson. But we always know that a tight end is just an extension of the offensive line. And if this offensive line is going to be as studly or as top 10 as we all think it will be, why not give it a little extra boost and put TJ on one end and put Darren Fells on the other end inside the red zone? And I know Nate up top said we don't think the offense is going to be very good. Rightfully so, but teams are always going to get in the red zone somehow. Mm-hmm. So I think Darren Fells is a nice sleeper for not only DFS purposes, but for seasonal purposes. More than likely, I would say redraft leagues. Probably get them for free after your draft. Just add them off waivers.
That's a really interesting take. And look, you got a coach that was a former tight end too, right? So that's another thing that you start to think about. And, even the offensive coordinator seemed to like tight ends pretty well in his day. So Nate up top, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I don't have a lot of faith in this offense, but it's still football. This is still the NFL. They still have to score points. That's going to happen. I really agree with Nate down below. On his Quintez Cephas take there. I think he's the guy that I'm definitely going out and getting at that cheap price. Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're getting him in your rookie drafts. Probably, not as high as he would have gone in a better situation. But still you're spending some of that capital there where Cephas is probably on a waiver wire somewhere. Mm-hmm. And the great thing about that is he gets a connection with Jared Goff, and you jumped into your waiver wire, you've gotten him, and then he turns into a starter eventually. And then next year we're looking at a conversation where he's a top 24, top 36 wide receiver, possibly. And now you've got a starter going forward. So if I was going to put my hat on anyone being a sleeper, Cephas has got to be it.
I think got a bunch of targets last year in the very beginning of the year when there were some injuries, like double-digit targets. It was one of the things that always jumped out to me when I was looking through target distribution and going off as the wide receiver 100 right now in Dynasty, which just seems low. So I love that call. How about if somebody's going to bust? The only ones that were really drafting high enough that I think you can even consider a bust would be Hockenson and Swift. Does anybody think one of those might be a bust this season?
As much as I love Swift, that's my worry. I think there's a huge upside and huge potential for a great year, but I think there's also big potential for a year that, is less than what we're expecting.
Mm-hmm. Cal, here's my thing real quick, if I may. So right now, social media, it controls everything. We have, you could see our faces in 2 seconds with one swipe of your thumb. And so when you say bust or when you say breakout or when you say sleeper, it's all in the eye of the beholder. So what my favorite team is the Lions, or my fantasy team. It's in the my eye of the beholder, if that makes any sense. I feel like I got it backwards. So anything these players do, they go to the bathroom and they come back and they miss a play. They're a bust. They weren't on the field. Their snap percentage was lower than it. So these people throw out these buzzwords so often, almost every day on social media, and it drives me nuts. Obviously, Swift at his ADP. Obviously, TJ Hawkinson at his ADP. And again, who's going to call these players bust? You have to go. You have to run the numbers right. TJ Hawkinson, if he's a tight end 5 and he gets 120 targets and he catches 10 touchdowns, you're going to have people that call him a bust. You know, you might call him a bust, Cal. I might say, hey, that was a pretty dang good season. So it's all different with who you're talking to. It's all different in relation to what circles you're running. And so those buzzwords have always bugged me. And so again, those two guys, obviously, sure, they can bust, but who's to say that? Who can say what is truly a bust and what is not?
100%. Let's talk about the targets. I want to go to this next question because they're like, so it's the NFL. There's going to be targets. People are going to catch the ball. So there's some values here that I think we're just missing. Like Amon-Ra has the highest ADP of any of the wide receivers at wide receiver 64. Then you've got, after him, you've got Brashad Perryman at 86, Tyrell Williams at 88, Quintez Cephas at 100 that I already mentioned. So simple question on who's going to lead the team in targets, because whoever it is going to outperform where they're going. Nate down low. Let's go to you first on this.
I think Tyrell Williams and Brashad Perryman are obviously the field stretchers, and that is not necessarily what you think of when you think of Jared Goff. So I tend to lean to the underneath guys. So I'm kind of thinking, I think that Hawkinson and Swift could combine for 180 targets this year. And Amon-Ra is kind of designated as the slot guy, even early on in camp. He's been, when he's on the field with the ones, it's as the slot receiver. So if I had to pick between those three, I'd probably go with Hawkinson. I think he's at the right point in his, early on in his career where he's developing well at a good rate, and he has a quarterback that, could lean on him. He's been out to LA already this year. They've been throwing the ball around, so they're building that rapport. So my bet would be Hawkinson.
Nate up top. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I got to say, coming into this year with pretty much a brand new team, brand new coaching staff, it's very difficult to really know where things are going to go. If we were still talking about Stafford, we all have been watching him for, 10 some years. We kind of know his traits and what he's going to do. I think that the ball is going to be spread around, at least in the first 3 or 4 games, spread around a lot. But I do agree with Nate down below. Hawkinson, as far as when you talk about who can catch the ball and who I feel confident catching the ball and who is going to be in the vicinity for Jared Goff to throw to, because I don't see Goff making those Stafford throws, way down the field into tight windows at all. So we're talking the first, 10, 15, 20 yards in front of him, and that's going to be Hawkinson. That's going to be Swift. I do like Amon-Ra St. Brown. And, I think that Cephas, and these are all the names that we've been talking about, but Cephas has that opportunity to kind of be able to get those maybe longer down the field throws. And so I think it's going to be within there. And I think it's going to be pretty even, to be honest, unless something happens where Hawkinson and Goff just click and that becomes like a cheat code for them that, if he's in trouble, he's going to dump it off to Hawkinson or maybe even dump it off to Swift in the backfield. So that's kind of where I think that's going to go.
And I think that is the general consensus on what we expect. I did read that Jared Goff had some comments where he was talking about pushing the ball down the field, which is so weird to hear from Jared Goff because he's just never done that. And I don't know if maybe that's the influence of the coaching staff. Maybe it's just he's heard too much about, how he's a check down guy. But Chris, what do you think? I mean, do you think like that's what you expect out of the offense? Check down, tight end, running back? Yeah, or do you think he could push the ball down the field a bit?
I mean, I'd like to think I'm interesting. People want to talk to me or people want to have me on their broadcast, and I'm not going to get cute right now. There's no need for me to say, "Oh, Darren Fells, I'd look like a fool." It's TJ Hawkinson, and we can be done with it. Why even go on? Although I will say really fast, Brashad Perriman has a chance to really be something good here, right? If you look at his average depth of route and all that, and we're just assuming that just because they're field stretchers, which is a very good observation, doesn't mean that just because they run more than 30 or 40 yards, Jared Goff won't even attempt to throw him the ball, or Jared Goff won't even, want to throw him the ball. So to me, it's TJ Hawkinson and Swift. And then after that, I would put my money on Brashad Perriman seeing upwards of 90 targets this coming season.
Yeah, and I thought he actually looked pretty good in like the very end of his year with Tampa Bay. I thought he actually looked like a pretty good wide receiver. I know he busted there in Minnesota, but at Tampa Bay, I thought he didn't look bad, and didn't get a lot of run in New York. That was a terrible situation with Gase, but we'll see what we've got here. And this next question, I think is. Oh,
sorry to cut. Who's to say that Perriman leaving the Jets and going to Detroit doesn't have the same effect as Robbie Anderson, leaving New York and going to Carolina? Two different receivers, but again, it's August 1st, and anytime it's August in Detroit, people are eternally optimistic. So hey, there's your comparison, right?
And okay, just to jump in real quick before we go on to the next thing, we're also dealing with a completely new coaching staff, and I would have to say that Twitter analysts and those guys, looking at what's been happening, trying to predict the future with this, it could be something completely different. We have no idea what Dan Campbell and his coaching staff are trying to do. They might be able to, and we talked about this a little bit off air before, Calvin, about how Jared Goff leaving Sean McVay might have an impact on how Jared Goff can play. So we don't know if something develops somehow that they get in, and this is all purely speculative, really go off of like, the base of TJ Hawkinson, all that stuff. But it's like, there's a lot of different opportunities that could happen that we might look back in 3 months and go like, holy crap, we didn't see that coming.
Hey, Cal, can you do me a favor real quick? Yeah. So the last comment here, PJ Kennedy, 2021. Will you bring up his last comment real quick about Perriman isn't good? And I appreciate the comment, PJ, but I just want to let you know, last season, 30% of Perriman's targets were off base. They weren't even close to him. That's 30% is a massive number. PJ, whatever you got in your bank account, take 30% out and we'll call you broke. You wouldn't feel good about that.
I like his comment here. I'm not sold that Perriman isn't good. I think I'd like to see what he does this year, but this is probably a pretty good summary. If you ask me to one line summary on how I feel about the Lions, this is pretty good. Hawkins, Swift are the guys to own. Got to wait and see the wide receivers. I do like St. Brown, and that's me too. I really do kind of like St. Brown. I like him for a lot of reasons. I liked what I saw on the football field. He broke out at an early age there at USC. There's a lot of things that the analytics crowd likes, obviously. I don't love that he was a 4th round pick. I think that's probably, it makes you kind of look back and say gosh, why was he a 4th round pick? But smart as can be, gets after it on the football field and gets after it on in the classroom. Learned 3 languages and took the SAT in all 3 languages. This kid's brilliant. Wild. He's not there's a lot to like, and the reports have been good, right? I mean, you guys have seen some of those same reports.
He stayed after practice over the weekend. He wanted to catch exactly, what was it, guys? 206 or 2. He wanted to catch exactly so many passes from the jugs machine, where they're doing the run and then boom, run and boom. Right. So he stayed late after practice, which is always nice to see.
100%. Anything else on St. Brown from you guys?
I think the 4th round pick is not, I mean, I know that's a huge deal in terms of in the summer, draft selection and in draft capital in terms of dynasty and everything. But I think it was a good, smart move in terms of the front office of the Lions. They could have absolutely taken him in the 2nd round or with their 3rd round selection. But these guys, Dan and Brad saw something. We're like, you know what? We can get away with letting him fall a little bit. And then boom. So to me, it was a good move. Not so much speaking speaks to Amon Brown's talent, but more so about like the scouting process of the Lions front office.
If he was taking the second round, he would be going in the first round of rookie drafts because people would be thinking about his target numbers and all those things. It's just the draft capital starts to get people nervous and things like that. Because, last year we overreacted to some people and moved them up because of their draft capital. I think people get nervous about some of those things, and maybe we shouldn't, right? I mean, like, Nate, did you study at Monterey a little bit? Either one of you, Nate?
I did quite a bit, yeah. I just loved how physical he was, and always getting separation, great route runner. Just a big fan, yeah.
Nate, did you look at them at all?
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
Amon St. Brown.
You said it so quickly. I thought you said monorail.
Sorry,
I haven't dived into his tape. Obviously, I've been, reading the draft magazine that, I put together, and, just listening to the experts, like, these guys down here, on what, they have to say about him. So I'm excited, and I think he slots in really well into, this building offense, and, could see some good production year one.
I'm almost certain Tyrell and Perriman haven't been the pillars of health at the wide receiver position in their while they've been in the NFL. And I'm almost certain Amon-Ra, just leapfrogs one of them. And I don't know who it'll be. Whoever, gets the first injury or goes down first and misses 2 or 3 games, whether it be Perriman or Tyrell. I mean, I wish them all health and good fortune, but ultimately Perriman or Tyrell, one of the two, they're going to go down, and boom, and Amon-Ra is going to step up, and I don't think he looks back. I don't think he gives up that wide receiver 1 and or wide receiver 2 role for this team long term.
Do you think he moves out of the slot at all?
No, I don't think so. I mean, because you could have obviously TJ's a tight end, which obviously lines up directly next to the slot guy. And Tyrell and Perriman are bigger bodies, as we said earlier in the show. They stretch the field. So to keep Amon-Ra in the slot, when you're a rookie like that in camp and preseason, let him get the reps there. And as he grows, game 4, game 5, all your work is going to be in the slot. And then, God forbid, Tyrell or Perriman goes down, then open it up a little bit. You can go outside of the 20s, and we'll see what happens. And again, Amon-Ra is a very smart kid, as Cal said. So if he can pick up speaking different languages, he can pick up a couple more steps towards the sideline at being a wide receiver. So again, Amon-Ra doesn't look back, and he's going to leapfrog one of these guys very early on in the season.
I like that.
I love the way he works out of the slot too. Like, he's not just your typical like Wes Welker type, or like he works the seams real well. Like he can still get deep out of the slot, which I really loved watching him when I watched him. So, all right. So remember, 17-game season. Let's talk about how the team is going to do. Chris, you seem to be one of the more optimistic people about this team for sure. 17-game season. What do you think their record's going to be?
Well, they're going to win the North, right? They're going to win 12 games. They're probably going to beat. They're going to beat Green Bay. They're going to sweep the division, right? They're going to beat Chicago twice. I mean, what kind of fantasy world would I be living in? And yes, I'm optimistic, but I'm also realistic. I'm in my late 30s. I've been around a while in terms of being a Detroit fan or being a Detroiter, being born and raised here. And let's be honest here, the Lions aren't going to win a ton of games. I mean, 5 or 6 would be, have a parade in Hart Plaza downtown, right up Gratiot or right up Woodward if they win 6 games. But realistically, I think 4 is a good number. 5 is a little ambitious, and I would be happy with 5 wins. But the thing that strikes me here is the fact that, we all know, both Nates, we all know here in Detroit, this is the time of the year where everybody's walking on sunshine. Everyone's on that Lions draft pink cloud where, oh my God, we've had 2 practices and the rookies look strong and they're going to the coach is coming around and everything's going to be good. And then 2 weeks into the season, they're 0-2 and they've been outscored by 40, 50 points and everybody's just like down in the dumps. And it's like if you're realistic, you saw that coming. This time around, I'm noticing Lions fans are very reasonable given what's going on. Everybody is kind of, happy, and they're looking long term. It's not just they drafted a wide receiver again in the first round for the last 5 years. They're realistic about, offensive linemen, then back-to-back defensive tackles. They're building from the inside out. This coaching staff, as of right now, and the GM seem to have a grip on what they want to do. They have a direction. It's going to take time. Things aren't going to happen, boom, right here and now. It's just not how pro football goes. So four wins, I think, is pretty standard. 5, I'd be ecstatic. 6, we're having a parade, boys.
Love it. Nate on bottom, Nate down low.
I think Chris nailed it. When I was, thinking this over earlier, 5 wins felt a little bit too optimistic to me. Just trying to be realistic and understand that it is going to be a long-term rebuild, more than likely, a couple of years. I would feel good about 4, probably 5. Like Chris said, at 6, we're going to be ecstatic. So
pretty tough schedule opening up if you're Detroit, right? True. I mean, San Fran, Green Bay, Baltimore, Chicago, 3 out of the first 5 are on the road too. So
playoff contenders. San Francisco's a Super Bowl contender. Green Bay might be too. So it's going to be tough sledding these first few weeks.
It's going to be a brutal year, probably.
Yeah, I got to say that I'm a little bit different in my opinion here. I do believe in 4 wins. I don't think that there should be a celebration at 6 wins. I think at that point we should be burning Detroit down, because that means we just lost, top 5 pick the next year, because you got to imagine that there's going to be we're probably picking 3 at 3 if we get 4 wins, because Houston, if they aren't playing, there's a few teams out there that are just really bad, so we're going to be fighting for that position. So to be honest, I'm rooting for as low as you can go, because Jared Goff, while that was a great trade in getting him, I'm looking for the future. I want to see the QB that's coming up. And speaking of that, Chris here talking about how they're rational Detroit fans on social media, I don't know if I agree with you. Detroit Twitter, and we're not even going to go into Detroit Facebook. That's a bad place, and there's a lot of them that are getting up in arms over the fact that we didn't go Justin Fields at that first pick. There are people calling out, already pushing aside Dan Campbell, this whole administration, and just saying, nope, this wasn't it because of this one pick. So it's frustrating for me, because I like the pick. Sewell was the pick there as he dropped, and really kind of puts together that offensive line. But it would be nice to have a rookie quarterback, sitting behind Jared Goff, developing, so that we have a future. But we can do that next year. I'm completely fine with Fields going to Chicago, and us. I don't know who's the next guy next year. What can we do if we can maintain, a bad record and land in the top 5, and then maybe something works out, we get a good quarterback that we develop, build on. So I'm going.
It seemed like Dan Campbell's building from the trenches out, based on some of the draft picks and some of the moves that were made. Yeah. And that seems to be a pretty good plan. Obviously, if Fields turns out to be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, having him right there in your division is going to feel pretty bad.
Yeah, no, that would not be great. But what I would say is that the ownership level, they're giving Campbell a very long leash here, because he's got a 5-year contract, which is is it 5 or is it 6 year?
It's more than that.
Is it more than that?
I'm pretty sure it's over 5. I'll look.
Because generally there's the standard contract for a coach. I just know that he got a couple years extra because they know that these first 2 years are kind of a wash. You can't judge the coaching staff off of what's going to happen this year, next year. And then after that, you've got, Jared Goff. We have an out from Jared Goff so that we can be moving on to whoever the next quarterback will be. And if we don't have all of the things lining up at that point, then I don't know. It's just like being a Detroit Lions fan all over again.
And with that, I think that's a good place to end. That's a good breakdown of the Detroit Lions. I think this is a team that's going to be really exciting to watch. There's going to be some fantasy opportunity to be had. I think these guys did a great job breaking it down. I left leaving like a little bit more excited about Quintus Cephas than I came in, and certainly at his price and the opportunity that he could have like for the future for Dynasty, not necessarily this year, but like, hey, he could be part of this build for a long time. So for Chris down there, for Nate, download Nate, and up top Nate, I appreciate all of these guys for showing up and helping with all this. I'm at Calvin and Hobby with DLF. This is at DL Football on Twitter. Hey, just look down real quick and make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. Just make sure it says subscribed and not just subscribed. If it does say subscribe, hit the button. Make sure you do that. Hit the thumbs up. Make sure you turn on those notifications. Do everything, all the things, so that you make sure that you don't miss when we go live. We've got a jam-packed week of getting these team previews, and not to mention we have real football this Thursday. Kind of real Hall of Fame game, but it'll look real. And so for these guys, I'm Calvin and Hobby for DLF. We will